When I found out my sister had signed documents in my name, emptied our mother's bank accounts, and stolen everything I was supposed to inherit, I felt like I was disappearing, like my own identity was being erased. That's where it all began. Not with a scream or a fight, but a quiet, terrifying feeling that something was wrong. Something deep and unforgivable. I remember the morning clearly. The sun was barely up, casting a soft golden light through the kitchen window. I was standing by the counter, the smell of burnt toast filling the air, trying to shake the heaviness that had been settling in my chest for days. The house felt too empty, too cold. Our mother had passed away just a few weeks earlier. Marissa Collins was a strong woman, full of warmth and stubborn love. She had been the heart of our family, and losing her was like losing the ground beneath my feet. My sister Kara and I had always been close. Or at least I thought so, despite our differences. But since Mom's passing, something had shifted. The small tensions, the long silences between us, they had grown into a chasm I wasn't sure we could cross. Kara was the one who insisted on handling the paperwork, the funeral arrangements, the will, the estate. She said it was easier if she took care of it, and I trusted her. After all, it was her home too. She was always the more organized one. I had my own life, a job across town, friends, a small apartment. I thought she had it covered. But that morning, my phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. Call me as soon as possible. There's something you need to know about Mom's accounts. It was from Brandon Scott, our family attorney. I dialed his number before my coffee had cooled. Sloan, Brandon said, his voice steady but low. I've been reviewing the paperwork Kara submitted. There are discrepancies. Some documents were signed under your name without your authorization. I swallowed hard, the kitchen suddenly feeling suffocating. What do you mean? Signed my name? How is that possible? He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. Kara handled the estate filings after your mother passed, but it seems she signed several documents as if she were U-forms authorizing transfers and withdrawals from your mother's accounts. My hand trembled. Are you saying she emptied the accounts? Yes. Large sums moved out in the past 2 weeks, and the paperwork shows your signature. I sank onto a kitchen chair, the world tilting around me. But I never signed anything. She can't do that. Brandon's voice was calm but firm. It's illegal, Sloan. Identity fraud. We need to act carefully. That was the moment I realized I was no longer just grieving. I was fighting to reclaim my own life, my identity, my inheritance, my mother's legacy. In the days before everything unraveled, life had seemed normal, familiar, even comforting in its routine. Our mother's house sat nestled between maple trees, the porch swing creaking gently in the afternoon breeze. Mom loved that swing. She'd sit there after dinner, sipping chamomile tea, the scent of lavender candles filling the air. It was a place of peace, where stories were shared and secrets whispered. Kara and I would sometimes sit with her, the three of us entwined in our small world. Kara's laughter was sharp, like the clinking of crystal glasses, full of confidence and edge. Mine was quieter, more hesitant, always trying to smooth over tension, keep the peace. Mom was the bridge between us. After Mom's diagnosis, everything changed. Hospital visits replaced porch talks. The scent of antiseptic overtook lavender. Kara threw herself into caretaking with fierce determination. I worked longer hours, trying to hold on to normalcy. I remember one evening, Mom's voice barely above a whisper as she told me, "Your sister will take care of things. You don't have to worry." I believed her, but the first clue something was wrong came with a subtle change, a missed call from Kara, an unanswered text, an offhand comment about finalizing paperwork that didn't sit right. When I asked for details, she brushed me off with a quick smile and a change of subject. The warmth in her voice was gone, replaced by a cool distance. I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling. Then came the bank statement. I was flipping through my mail one afternoon when an envelope caught my eye. It was from our mother's bank, addressed to me. Inside, a statement showing an empty account. Empty. The numbers where a balance should have been were replaced by zeros. All the savings, the emergency funds, the careful nest egg Mom had built over decades gone. I called the bank, heart pounding. "Can you tell me when the withdrawals were made?" A pause. "Most were within the last 2 weeks. All authorized with your signature." "No, that's not possible," I said, voice shaking. "I never authorized any withdrawals." They offered sympathy, but no immediate solution. I looked at Kara's name in my contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button, unsure if I wanted answers or confirmation of my worst fears. When I confronted Kara that evening, the air between us was thick with unspoken truths. "Why didn't you tell me about the withdrawals?" I asked quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, eyes narrowing. "I was taking care of things. You were too busy to deal with it." I shook my head. "You signed documents as me. That's illegal." Why would you do that? Her laugh was bitter. Because you never wanted to be involved. You never cared enough. I saw something dark flicker in her gaze. A mix of resentment and fear. Kara, this isn't just about money. It's about trust. Mom trusted us both. She looked away, jaw clenched. Maybe she should have trusted me more. That night, I lay awake, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I realized this wasn't just about inheritance. It was about the sister I thought I knew, and the woman she had become. The next morning, the house felt even heavier. I woke up to the sound of the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat echoing through the silence. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the bitter aroma filling the kitchen, but even that warmth couldn't cut through the chill settling inside me. I stared out the window, watching maple leaves drift down like tiny secrets falling to the ground. I knew I had to dig deeper. If Kara was willing to sign my name and empty the accounts, what else had she done? And how far was she willing to go? I decided to start with the paperwork, the estate filings Brandon had mentioned. He had sent me copies the day before, and although I felt overwhelmed, I couldn't let the fear win. Sifting through the stack of papers, my fingers trembled as I scanned for anything out of place. The signatures on many documents matched mine exactly, but I hadn't signed them. Somewhere, my identity was being stolen piece by piece, and I was powerless to stop it, at least on the surface. I reached out to Brandon again, my voice quieter this time. Is there a way to check if the documents are forged? Could someone fake my signature like this? He replied, yes. We can hire a forensic handwriting expert. It's expensive, but it's one way to prove fraud. It's a start. Relief and dread washed over me. Relief that help was possible. Dread over the price I might have to pay. Not just financially, but emotionally. Over the next few days, I began a silent investigation. I didn't tell Kara what I was doing. I needed time, evidence, a way to protect what was mine. I revisited the bank. Sitting in a sterile office, I listened as the teller carefully walked me through the transactions. Large sums moved out, transferred to accounts I'd never seen before. Some were accounts linked to Kara's name. Others, I wasn't sure. Each detail was another punch in the gut. That night, I went through old family albums and letters, hoping to find something that would help me understand Kara's motives. I remembered Mom's quiet warnings, the way she sometimes looked at Kara with a mixture of sorrow and worry. The truth was unfolding, piece by piece. One afternoon, as I was leaving the bank, my phone buzzed with a message from Kara. Can we talk? This is tearing us apart. My fingers hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand answers. But I also knew better. If I let anger take over, I'd lose control. I typed back. We need to meet. I have questions. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe near our childhood neighborhood, a place filled with old memories, bitter and sweet. When I arrived, Kara was already there. Her posture was rigid, eyes scanning the room like she was expecting an ambush. I sat across from her, the air thick with tension. I know what you did, I said softly. I have proof you signed my name. Emptied Mom's accounts. Why, Kara? She stared down at her coffee, swirling the liquid as if it could drown the weight she carried. You think I wanted this? I didn't ask to be the one stuck cleaning up after Mom's mess. I had to take control or lose everything. Her voice cracked just a little, a glimpse behind the mask. You stole my identity, Kara. You stole from Mom. From me, I said, my voice shaking with the quiet storm inside me. I did what I had to, she whispered. We were both overlooked. You were the good girl, the one everyone trusted. I was the shadow. I had to fight for what was mine. There it was, the raw, painful truth buried beneath the betrayal. She felt invisible, unheard, desperate. But that didn't justify what she'd done. I left the cafe with a heavy heart, but with a clearer sense of purpose. This wasn't just about money or inheritance. It was about reclaiming my life from a sister who had lost her way, and about standing up to a betrayal so deep, it cut through family ties like a knife. Brandon called me later that week. We got the handwriting expert's report, he said. It confirms Kara forged your signature on every document she submitted. My breath caught. What now? We file a lawsuit for fraud and identity theft, he said firmly. But Sloan, this will be messy. Kara won't back down easily. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I was ready. For the first time since Mom died, I felt something fierce rise inside me, a quiet strength, a resolve to fight not just for what was mine, but for the truth. The following days blurred into a swirl of meetings, phone calls, and late-night research. Kara sent a lawyer's letter, denying everything, threatening counterclaims. Our family was splintering in front of me, each conversation with relatives more strained than the last. Mom watched it all with a heavy sadness. One evening, she pulled me aside. Sloan, she said softly, This pain isn't just between you and Kara. It's been growing under the surface for years. You both loved your father in different ways. But the silence, the secrets, they've poisoned everything. I looked into her eyes, full of tired hope. How do we fix this? She shrugged, the weight of grief pulling her down. Maybe some wounds need time to heal. But you must protect yourself. And you must hold on to who you are. One late afternoon, as I sat alone in Mom's living room, I heard the soft click of the front door. Kara. She stepped inside, tentative, as if unsure if she belonged. I don't want to fight anymore, she said quietly. But I don't know how to make things right. I looked at her, the sister I had loved and lost. Maybe, I said. It starts with honesty. She nodded, tears threatening. And in that moment, between broken trust and the possibility of forgiveness, I realized the battle wasn't just for inheritance, it was for the heart of family itself. The days following Kara's quiet visit were some of the hardest I've ever faced. The house felt heavier, like the weight of unspoken truths pressed against the walls. Yet beneath the pain, a fragile thread of hope began to weave its way through the tension. I spent mornings poring over documents, late nights whispering to the darkness about what had been stolen, not just money or papers, but years of trust, memories, and the sister I thought I knew. Brendan was relentless. His steady voice became my anchor as we built the case against Kara. Every signed document, every bank transfer, every forged signature was another brick in the wall I was determined to break down. Still, the courtroom felt like a battlefield I never wanted to step onto. It was hard to face the woman I'd grown up with, the person I'd shared birthdays and secrets with, yet I had to do it for myself, for Mom, and for the truth. The first hearing was a blur of code stares and legal jargon. Kara's attorney painted me as greedy, accusing me of trying to tear our family apart over money. The room felt like a cage, every word a chain tightening around my chest. But when Brandon stood up to speak, his voice was calm, precise like a lighthouse cutting through fog. He laid out the evidence. The forensic handwriting expert's report confirming the forgeries, bank records showing the unauthorized transfers, and testimony from the bank manager. I watched Kara from across the room. Her face was pale, eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite name. Guilt, fear, regret. In the quiet moments between arguments, I caught her gaze. It was brief, but the sister I once knew peeked through scared, trapped by her own choices. Outside the courthouse, the community began to whisper. Friends we'd shared dinners with, neighbors who waved hello from their porches, even coworkers, they all had opinions. Some took my side quietly, others stayed silent, afraid to choose. It was painful, the way family drama becomes a spectacle. But I held my head high. This wasn't about gossip, it was about justice. Mom, who rarely showed her emotions in public, surprised me one afternoon by calling a family meeting. In the soft glow of the living room, she spoke with a steady voice. Yet her eyes were weary. We all hurt, she said. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means understanding, and moving forward with honesty. Her words hung in the air like a fragile promise. As the trial progressed, Kara's defenses began to crumble. Faced with irrefutable evidence, she finally admitted to forging my signature and draining the accounts. Her voice broke as she confessed. I was scared. I thought if I didn't take control, I'd lose everything. I lost myself in that fear. The courtroom was silent. I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief wash over me. Kara looked at me, tears streaming down her cheeks. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. For the first time, I saw not an adversary, but a sister, flawed, afraid, and human. The judge ruled in my favor. The stolen money was to be returned, and legal penalties were imposed on Kara for fraud and identity theft. But the victory was bittersweet. The family we once were was fractured, and the healing would take time. In the weeks that followed, I began rebuilding what had been broken. I cleared out Mom's house, filling the rooms with memories and the scent of fresh lavender. I started therapy to unpack the betrayal and grief, learning to trust myself again. Slowly, Kara and I began to talk not about money or lawsuits, but about us. About the sisters who once shared secrets and whispered conversations in childhood dreams. One afternoon, she handed me an old photo album. Maybe, she said softly, we can find our way back. The road to healing wasn't smooth. The wounds ran deep, and forgiveness was never simple. Some days, the memories of betrayal felt like a cold shadow over every conversation with Kara. But beneath the pain, a new understanding began to grow, a fragile, tentative thread connecting us again. We started with small things. A phone call to check in, a shared cup of coffee at the old neighborhood cafe. Conversations that didn't end in silence or anger. It wasn't about pretending the past didn't happen, but acknowledging it and choosing to move forward. One afternoon, as I sat in Mom's living room, the afternoon light filtering through the curtains, Kara walked in with a folder in her hands. "I found this," she said quietly, setting it on the coffee table. It was a letter from Mom, dated just a few months before she passed. "I wrote this when I realized things between us were breaking," Kara explained, voice trembling. "I never got the chance to give it to you." I unfolded the letter carefully, the paper soft and worn. "My dear daughters," it began. "I know life has taken us down different paths, and there are things left unsaid and undone. But family is more than blood or money. It is love, forgiveness, and the willingness to understand each other, even when we fail. My wish is for you both to find peace, not just with me gone, but with each other." Tears blurred my vision. Mom's words were a balm, a guide for the fractured family we were trying to rebuild. Around that time, Brandon called with news that shifted the story once again. "The court approved a settlement," he said. "Kara will repay the funds, but with a payment plan, and the fraud charges will be reduced to a misdemeanor, considering her cooperation in the family context." I sighed deeply. Justice was served, but it wasn't perfect. It never is. "I want you to remember one thing," Brandon added. "This isn't just a legal battle. It's about healing. And sometimes the hardest battles are the ones inside us." With the settlement in place, Kara and I began attending family counseling. It was awkward at first, forced silences, tears, and difficult conversations, but over time, the walls between us softened. One session, our counselor asked us to share what we missed most about our relationship before the betrayal. "I missed feeling safe," I said, my voice steady but emotional. "Safe to trust, to believe that my sister wouldn't hurt me." Kara nodded, tears in her eyes. "I missed feeling loved, without needing to fight for it." Those words, simple and raw, marked a turning point. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I found strength in routine morning walks through the park, the comforting smell of fresh coffee brewing, and quiet evenings filled with old books and soft music. I also reclaimed my identity in the legal and financial sense. Brandon helped me set up new accounts, change important documents, and secure my personal information. Every step was a reminder that I was more than a victim, I was a survivor. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the city skyline, Kara and I sat on the porch of Mom's house. We shared a cup of tea, the steam swirling between us like a fragile bridge. "I'm sorry for everything," Kara said, voice sincere. I reached over, taking her hand gently. "I'm sorry too for not seeing your pain sooner." In that moment, we both understood that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past, but choosing to walk forward together. Mom's house, once filled with echoes of loss and betrayal, began to feel like home again, a place where broken pieces could be mended, where love could grow in new ways. And as I looked out at the maple trees, their leaves glowing gold in the sunset, I realized that sometimes family means fighting for what's right, but also knowing when to heal. The days after our counseling sessions felt lighter, but I knew the real challenge was ahead. Rebuilding trust not just with Kara, but with myself. One quiet Saturday morning, as sunlight filtered through the blinds, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through emails when I noticed a message from Brandon titled, "New Development, Estate Documents." My heart skipped. I opened it carefully. The email contained a copy of a new will, recently discovered in Mom's personal safe one, that neither Kara nor I had known about before. This will was different. It named me as the sole beneficiary, and it explicitly revoked all previous versions. Brandon's note explained that Mom must have updated her will quietly before she passed, wanting to ensure her assets went to me, perhaps sensing the growing rift between her daughters. I stared at the document, feeling a complex rush of emotions. Relief, yes, but also sorrow, knowing the distance that had grown between us, the hurt we had caused each other. I called Brandon immediately. "Does this change the legal standing?" I asked. "Yes," he said carefully. "This new will legally supersedes the others. But since there's a dispute over the prior actions, we'll need to file a motion to enforce the latest will. It could finalize the inheritance in your favor." I exhaled slowly. This was the moment where justice might finally come full circle. That week, Kara and I met again, this time in Brandon's office. The atmosphere was tense, but quieter than before. Kara's eyes were tired, but there was a trace of something new: acceptance. Brandon explained the situation. "This will confirm Sloan as the rightful heir. Kara, it means you'll have to relinquish control over the estate." Kara nodded. "I understand." Then, surprisingly, she spoke directly to me. "Sloan, I know I hurt you, and I lost my way. I just want you to have what Mom wanted, for you to have peace." Her words weren't easy to hear, but I recognized their honesty. I replied, "Thank you, Kara. I want us to find a way forward, too." The legal process moved faster than I expected. The court accepted the new will, and with it, the financial accounts were returned to my name. The stolen funds began to be repaid, and the legal charges against Kara were reduced in consideration of her cooperation. Still, the emotional scars remained. In the quiet evenings after court dates, I found myself reflecting on everything: the betrayal, the grief, the fragile hope that had taken root. One night, I sat alone in Mom's favorite chair, the smell of lavender and old books surrounding me. The soft ticking of the clock marked time moving forward. Even when I felt stuck, I realized then that the true inheritance wasn't just money or property. It was the strength to stand up for myself, the courage to face painful truths, and the grace to begin healing. Slowly, I started rebuilding my life on my own terms. I took trips I'd always postponed, reconnected with old friends, and started volunteering at a local community center, helping others who felt lost or betrayed. Each day was a reminder that while the past shaped me, it didn't define me. Kara and I continued to navigate our complicated relationship. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. She attended my birthday party later that year, a small gathering with close friends and family. She brought a simple gift, a framed photo of us as kids, smiling and carefree. I smiled back, feeling something I hadn't in months: hope. The fight to reclaim what was mine taught me that family isn't always about blood or fairness. Sometimes, it's about resilience, forgiveness, and the willingness to rebuild even when it seems impossible. And those scars remain. I know they are part of the story. I will carry forward a story of betrayal, loss, and, ultimately, strength. With the court case behind us, news about the dispute started circulating quietly among our extended family and the community. It wasn't the kind of headline anyone wanted plastered on the neighborhood grapevine, but sometimes the truth has a way of seeping out. At first, I dreaded the whispers, the cautious glances at family gatherings, the half-hearted messages from distant relatives, unsure where they stood. But as the days passed, something unexpected happened. Some family members reached out, not with judgment or blame, but with empathy. Aunt June called one evening, her voice warm despite the distance. "Child, I can't imagine what you've been through, but I'm proud of you for standing up. Family is complicated, but love should always find a way." Even Kara's closest friends began to show a softer side, quietly encouraging her to make amends. It was as if the storm had exposed wounds we all shared, and now there was a chance for healing, not just for me and Kara, but for everyone tangled in the web. At work, the situation brought unexpected challenges. Some coworkers whispered behind my back. Others seemed unsure how to act. The betrayal had made me more cautious, less trusting, but I refused to let it define me. Instead, I leaned into my work with renewed focus. I took on new projects, earned promotions, and quietly built a reputation not as the woman caught in family drama, but as someone resilient, capable, and steadfast. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I bumped into an old friend, Emma, someone I hadn't seen in years. She smiled warmly. "I heard about everything. I'm so sorry you had to go through that." Her kindness was a balm. We caught up over coffee, and in her company, I felt the weight lift a little. Meanwhile, Kara's journey was more complicated. She faced not only the legal consequences, but also the social repercussions. Some friends distanced themselves. Others were skeptical of her intentions. But slowly, she began to rebuild too, through community service, therapy, and sincere efforts to make things right. When we crossed paths at family events, there was still tension, but also a quiet respect that hadn't been there before. One day, as I was sorting through old letters from Mom, I found a note tucked inside. It read, "To my daughters in the end, love is the only inheritance that truly matters. May you find peace in each other and in yourselves." I folded the note carefully and held it close. Standing at the crossroads of betrayal and forgiveness, I learned that justice isn't always about punishment sometimes. It's about restoration, and restoration requires courage to face the past, to acknowledge pain, and to open the door for healing. As the weeks turned to months, the community began to see a different story. Not one of scandal or bitterness, but of two sisters learning to find their way back from the edge. And for me, that was the most important legacy of all. Healing, I came to understand, was not a destination but a journey, one marked by small steps forward and occasional stumbles back. It was learning to live with the scars, not letting them define the contours of who I was. In the months after the trial, I found myself slowly reclaiming my sense of peace. I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping women who had faced betrayal in many forms. Their stories echoed parts of my loss, fear, the desperate need to find strength again. One evening, after a long day, I sat alone on my porch, The air smelled of rain and earth, and the faint hum of distant traffic blended with the chirping of crickets. The quiet was a balm, a moment to breathe. Kara and I had been communicating more openly, sometimes painfully, but always, honestly. We weren't back to where we were before Mom's death, but there was progress. Our relationship was complicated, layered with both regret and hope. One afternoon, as we packed up the last of Mom's things to donate, Kara paused and looked at me. "I never wanted to lose you," she said softly. "I was scared, selfish, but I want to be better." Her eyes held a vulnerability that made me ache. "I want that too," I replied, "but it has to be one day at a time." We didn't hug or make promises, nothing dramatic, just a quiet understanding passing between us. Life moved forward, as it always does. I changed my phone number and secured my financial accounts. A practical step to protect myself. I found joy in small routines. Morning walks with the sun on my face, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the pages of a good book. Brandon continued to be a steadfast support, not just as a lawyer, but as a friend who reminded me to stay grounded when emotions threatened to overwhelm. One evening, as I prepared dinner, the smell of garlic and rosemary filling the kitchen, I thought about everything I'd endured. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had also opened a door to strength I didn't know I had. I had learned that family is imperfect, sometimes messy, sometimes painful, but with forgiveness and courage, even fractured bonds could find a way to mend. And as I sat at the table, the evening light casting long shadows across the room, I knew one thing clearly. The true inheritance from Mom wasn't money or property. It was resilience, love, and the unbreakable will to reclaim my story on my own terms. Thank you for listening to my story. Sometimes, the people we love the most can surprise us in ways we never expected, and those surprises can leave scars that take time to heal. But even in the darkest moments, there is a light to be found. The strength to stand up for yourself, the courage to seek justice, and the grace to forgive when you're ready. Family isn't always perfect. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. But it is also where we learn about resilience and love, even when those lessons come wrapped in hardship. So I ask you, dear listener, if you found yourself in my shoes, betrayed by someone you trusted, what would you do? Would you fight to reclaim your truth? Or walk away? How do you find the balance between justice and forgiveness? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share your stories and reflections in the comments. If this story touched you, consider subscribing for more stories of real people facing real struggles, told with honesty and heart. Remember, no matter what you face, your story matters, and you have the power to write your own ending.